The idea of things like channeling, telepathy or telempathy, mediumship, psychic functioning, remote viewing, the idea of accessing information, whether you refer to it as tapping into the Akashic records or not, all of this operates on the same mechanism of resonance. When you allow yourself to focus on your passion with regard to any of these topics, again, channeling, mediumship, telepathy, information access, psychic functioning, in the way that allows you to start feeling a connection to that energy, your vibrational frequency adjusts and aligns with that concept in a manner to put you in touch with the frequency of that thing, of that concept, of that reality, of that experience, and allows, by alignment, it to flow through you unimpeded, without resistance, aside from whatever belief systems you may have that might get in the way. So the idea is to understand that the mechanism of all of these experiences is the same. It's about the willingness you have to let go of what you think yourself to be and let your frequency dial itself in to what it is you are passionate about experiencing in physical reality. Everything is a frequency pattern of consciousness. And as you tune your dial, yourself, your attention, your focus, your consciousness to these things, with practice, you get better and better at recognizing the specific frequencies, the flavors of them, so to speak, the colors of them, so to speak. And as you begin to recognize them more and more by practicing more frequently, tuning in to those frequencies, those concepts, you will get better at recognizing the specific frequencies that have to do with your interests, your passions, your excitements, and it will come more easily the more you clear yourself out of any belief systems that would prevent you from allowing that vibration to link up with you, to align with you. It will get easier and easier and easier to express these things if they are truly relevant for you. But remember, the idea of your core frequency is attracting already everything you need automatically. The only thing that would prevent those things from manifesting is the belief systems within you, or simply a lack of recognition of the timing that would actually be appropriate for those things to manifest. Letting go of that illusion of control is what will actually allow you to experience more control of these things, more refinement of your ability to tap into different frequencies that will manifest in your life the things that are relevant for you to experience, laid out by synchronicity in perfect timing. So feel the vibrations of your being. Resonance is the key. Like tuning forks that vibrate in harmony, that align in that way, you will become your own tuning fork with a flexibility to go up and down the scale of frequencies to access and align with whatever it is at any given moment represents your excitement, your passion, that is most relevant for you.
Hi Bashar, I have a question about synchronicity and the symbolic meaning that is reflected in the way synchronicity is expressed. For example, 2 years ago, a pet sitter friend of mine went to meet a potential client at a very safe, quiet apartment complex and ended up taking the job and staying there for a month. During her initial visit to the complex, she noticed there was a large window near the lobby that was taped and boarded up. but she didn't think much about it. 2 years later, she returned to the same client's apartment for another pet sit. During her stay, some kind of projectile hit the third floor sliding glass door, and the entire 8-foot span of glass was shattered. When the repairmen came to replace the glass, they told her they had not seen a shattered glass like hers, except one time 2 years earlier in the leasing office. Of course, they were referring to the boarded-up window my pet sitter friend had seen 2 years earlier. How do you interpret the symbolism and meaning of that synchronicity? Thank you.
Well, again, there would need to be a deeper examination of personality structures as they relate to the actual synchronous incident, because it can be compounded by different points of view from different individuals. Nevertheless, in its simplistic form, the idea is that it represents the shattering of old ways and the adoption of new ways coming in. So it marks the line at which consciousness may shift out of an old expression that dissolves, breaks apart, or shatters, to allow there to be more acceptance and allowance of a new direction in life. Shattering old ideas, breaking free from old ways, and recognizing also, concurrently, as we have described, the splitting prism of parallel realities that are now euphemistically separated from one another by glass walls. So the shattering of those glass walls, in this case illustrated by the shattering of the glass door, can be a representation of either A, you are ready to deal with more of the parallel realities that have been separate from you on the positive side, or B, on the negative side, the idea that you are letting in more negativity from the other reality that heretofore was separate from you by the glass wall. So again, this depends upon the structure of the personality dealing with these synchronicities and the honest examination of which direction and which definition you choose to take the synchronous thing that has occurred with regard to the shattering of the glass.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Infinite good days to you, brother. So I want to ask you real quick, a quick background of what I'm doing with scalar technology. We've been utilizing just a person's photos and literally putting it underneath the scalar tech, and they feel the remote frequencies of healing. So I want to give some questions to that, if you can shed some light. And one of the most important ones is there any frequency or set of frequencies that get rid of the vaccine using the scalar tech the way I've been using them with a person's photo?
Repeat the question. Some of it blanked out.
Is there any frequency or set of frequencies that get rid of the vaccine using the scalar tech the way I've been utilizing it with a person's photo?
What do you mean get rid of the vaccine?
Well, detox from the vaccine.
The vaccine is not toxic.
Oof. Okay. Or if someone has allergic reactions to it, how does one get rid of it?
That's different. That's different.
Okay.
But again, we cannot necessarily address many things having to do with your vaccines because your society has politicized this issue, and we cannot be that deeply involved in your politics.
I totally understand that. So the next question goes, what role does scalar technology have in advancement or hindrance of human consciousness?
Any technology is an expression of changes already happening in the collective consciousness. It can be expressed through individuals, it can be expressed through larger groups, it can be expressed by the entire civilization. But you don't have the ability to, in any way, shape, or form, create a technology that is not representative of some changes and understandings and viewpoints that already exist in the collective consciousness.
Right. So if scalar disrupts time and space, is there a doorway, and how do we open it?
It would require the use of scalar energies at certain frequencies that reinforce themselves We are scanning to see if you actually even have the technology to do this. One moment. All right, well, the only thing we can provide at the moment is, do you have the technological ability to go through scalar frequencies from lower to higher?
Yes. In terms of sweeping, I think you're referring to sweeping frequencies.
Yes. Start with the Schumann resonance at 7.85 cycles per second. Can you do that?
Yes.
And go up to 10. Back and forth, over the time frame of 15 seconds and 15-second intervals for 15 minutes. This will begin to entrain receptive consciousnesses in a way that will allow their consciousness to open up and align with certain kinds of vortex and portal energies so they can more effectively and easily connect to different dimensional energies that may be of assistance in raising their frequencies to the point where it can eventually alleviate the idea of certain frequencies of toxins, certain frequencies of allergens in the body, but again, still, as always, must be something that their belief system will allow them to know can work. Nevertheless, that's the technological side of it. The rest is up to them as to whether they are attracted and gravitate toward utilizing that particular permission slip. But going back and forth over 15-second intervals from 7.85 to 10 for 15 minutes of an exposure to that individual can assist them in helping to align their frequencies and energies, if they are so willing, to higher frequency dimensional energies that can be of assistance in aligning their cellular structure. That's all we can give you on that.
Thank you so much. And I want to ask, what role does alchemy breathwork specifically play in the category of breathwork to the collective consciousness moving forward?
Anytime that you can oxygenate the system with those kinds of regimens allows for greater utilization of higher frequency energies in individuals, and therefore more individuals who are attracted to use that permission slip can help oxygenate and energize the systems of more and more individuals that will allow the collective to be more receptive to higher frequency information, experiences, and energies.
Thank you so much. And I want to quickly give gratitude to you, Bashar, because it's in 2012, December 31st is when, listening to one of your meditations, many people thought the world was going to end, and you were part of my awakening, and I'm helping so many people, and you're part of that. Thank you.
Our deep appreciation to you as well. Have fun.
All right. Peace.
Hey, Bashar, this is your friend Teresa from Long Beach. I'm over here looking at your interstellar Enneagram that you gave us back in 2014, and I have a few questions about it. When you say hyper sapien, does that mean who humanity is becoming and who we are evolving into?
It means both what humanity is becoming, what you're evolving into as the sixth hybrid race, becoming Homo galacticus, but it also is a reference to the fact that there already exist certain hyper sapiens that have evolved beyond, that are your genetic cousins, that are assisting you from a certain level. So it's both of those things.
Also, is there any particular reason that the Pleiades are opposite Orion and Sirius is opposite the Grey Federation, with the seventh hybrid race in the center? Like, is the physical location of each of those in the Enneagram meaningful on its own?
Yes, because again, Orion represents a very ancient connection that requires you to live out the story of converting darkness to light, that represents what you call the past. The Pleiades represents the future, in the sense that they will not only be one of the first extraterrestrial races to make open contact with your civilization, but again, similar to the concept of hyper sapiens, they kind of represent what you can become as an Earth society. The Sirius vibration is opposite the Gray Federation, because again, the Grays represent a kind of parallel reality beginning of the entire hybridization agenda, and Sirius represents beings that have interjected into your society some of the things that you needed to know to allow you to continue to evolve in concert with the things that the Greys are also creating within the hybridization agenda. So from one perspective, you could say the Greys created the template of the evolution of the hybridization agenda, and Sirius consciousness has interjected information at certain points in your history that helped humanity evolve along the template that the Greys created for the evolution of the Earth into the sixth hybrid race. And yes, they all, in the center, meet to imply that ultimately, when the sixth hybrid race exists, then all of the hybrid races will interact in a way that will allow for the creation of the seventh hybrid race, the Anuhet.
And lastly, the way that you've drawn it for us, is that meant to suggest the tesseract? The way that the actual diagram is physically drawn? Thank you, Bashar. Appreciate you.
Yes, part of the puzzle has been solved then, but not all. Think interdimensionally. Think higher.
Hello, Tadeo.
Nania.
We have lots of questions from our viewers about sleep.
All right.
So here's the first question. Are dreams another reality of another life?
They can be. Again, many things, as we have explained, happen when you dream. You can be in spirit tapping into parallel realities, being aware of the connections that you have in life energetically to other lives, counterpart selves, in other time frames, in other civilizations. And when you wake up, again, your physical mind will do the best it can to represent the experience in the symbols that it has at its disposal, to reconstruct a dream in a way that is at least partially representative of what you were doing. So yes, that can happen.
Okay, and so is the dream state an actual reality?
Yes.
And the question goes on to say, since all that is now, isn't the dream state our access to other points of view of the infinite? Is the cast of characters in our dreams real in their dimension or density?
They can be. Again, it depends on the reason for the creation of the dream. They can be symbolic projections of your own consciousness, or they can be representative of actual encounters with actual beings. Again, your physical mind doing its best to create the representation that most closely resembles the experience that you had in the spirit state, as you say, out of body, in the astral realm. So yes, it's a real state. The idea of the dream, as most people on your planet understand a dream, is simply the, shall we say, representation, symbolic representation of an experience that happened in a real dimension of non-physicality.
Okay. And who or what actually sets up the dreams for us? Is there a dream director of some sorts? Why do humans regard dreams as being more profound than daydreams or even day-to-day thoughts?
You are the director of your dreams. Now, you may have assistance from spirit guides or from other spirit beings who's in a position to help you assess what it is you need to look at, what it is you need to experience, but you make the decisions as to what you're going to experience, what you're going to look at, what you're going to explore and examine. So you are the director. The idea is that non-physicality is your natural state, and therefore, in a sense, more real than the idea of physical reality. Physical reality is another type of dream that you're having. So you know that physical reality is your projection, your illusion, your construction, and therefore, in non-physical reality, you know that that's more truly your real state, and that's why Non-physicality seems more real than physical reality when you come from that perspective of understanding.
Here's another question. I don't seem to dream in color like others. For example, when I dream and I see a tree, I know it's green, but I don't see it in the traditional sense. I just know the trees are green. What is the meaning of this? Is this because I'm aware of it being a different frequency, or do others seem to say they see colors in their dreams just like they do with their physical eyes, but I just don't seem to see that?
Well, again, this can be for a variety of reasons depending upon why it's being created that way. Again, we have to take this on a case-by-case basis. But sometimes when you're exploring the idea of the expansion of consciousness and you start to realize that physical reality isn't real, you may not need to see the colors because you're simply attempting to see the projection itself, the electromagnetic energy itself that you are using to create the reflective objects that you call physical reality. So you may not at this point need to see the colors. They may, in a sense, be a distraction for you in terms of what it is you feel you need to see about physical reality. It can simply give you the props, the neutral props, without infusing them with any kind of solidity which color would represent. So you may simply be examining the neutrality of physical reality as a projection of your consciousness, created out of the electromagnetic energy, the electromagnetheric energy, and therefore not necessarily need to see the colors at this moment, so you can focus, in a sense, on the objects themselves. People in your physical reality who are colorblind have advantages in certain ways by being able to see things in your reality that might confuse a person who can see color, because the color would be a distraction, whereas colorblind people can see the objects that might be otherwise hidden from people who can see color. So you might be using the same technique to make sure you see what you need to see without being distracted by the introduction of color.
What about the opposite, where there are some people who see colors enhanced in dreams, where the concentration of color is very intense, particularly in a lucid dream situation?
That's usually the result of actually seeing the spirit reality, in which many things that you take for granted in physical reality are actually much stronger. There are even colors in the spirit reality you don't even have or are not capable of even seeing in physical reality. In a sense, no matter how vivid physical reality may seem, it is a pale comparison to the things that exist in the higher spiritual realms in terms of the use of light or the perception of light and color.
Well, I know like the difference in coloration, saturation between the mainland and Hawaii is very intense difference.
Yes.
And then some people seeing Essassani have also said that the color saturation is just amazing and
Yes.
way beyond even what you would experience here in Hawaii.
Because again, it's closer to spirit vibrationally, and therefore the colors are much more powerful.
Very lovely.
Yes.
What does it mean when two people have the same dream at the same time? This person is saying something about shared dreams, where they have an experience where they meet someone in a dream and then they wake up, and then both individuals are able to sort of recount the details of the dream as if they were together in it.
Well, it's not as if. Most likely they were together in another reality, sharing a shared experience and remembering that when they wake up in the physical world. It's not that uncommon. The idea involves a telepathic connection, vibrational mirroring, so they can, in spirit, in the astral realm or wherever, share an experience that they will remember as a shared experience in much the same way that you choose to do things with your friends in physical reality and have similar memories of the same event. It's not that unusual.
What are other purposes for that? Because obviously when someone experiences that, it feels very mystical and like, oh my gosh, how could that happen? You know?
Well, again, only because you make the spirit world something more mysterious than the physical reality. The idea, again, is it's no more uncommon than you deciding to get together with a friend to do something in the physical world. There are things that many people who are friends and members of soul families on the spirit level choose to do together, to explore things together, to share experiences together for a variety of reasons. So again, you're only making
talking about something called mirror work, which would be similar to like psychomantiums and that idea.
yes.
Were these methods part of our culture going way back and maybe starting in Atlantean times, or?
Yes. It began in Atlantean times and progressed through Egyptian times and spread out to many other cultures in the early days of your civilizations. Yes.
And what is the benefit of working with those kinds of tools?
Well, again, like any permission slip, it taps into certain things where people have certain sensitivities to recognize that the idea of reflection, which is what a mirror symbolizes, puts you in touch with not only different aspects of your own consciousness, if you're willing to reflect on them and look with honesty in the reflections in mirrors to see your true self, but also can allow you to look beyond the physical realm as if the mirror is actually a window into the spirit world. Because it can function that way for certain aspects of your consciousness as well. And allow ease of communication with spirits.
So is there something with the subconscious mind that allows it to use it and it gets the conscious mind out of the way in a sense?
Yes. The sub and unconscious minds, which are higher versions closer to the idea of the higher mind. And therefore, yes, getting the conscious mind to relax and allow yourself to see through the looking glass, so to speak, as opposed to just seeing your own physical reflection, is what will allow it to sort of turn into a window into the higher mind realm, which is the realm of spirit, and thus make more ease of communication with spirits, if used that way, in the way it is described to be used in the darkness with a dim light, not seeing anything in the mirror other than a blank canvas, so to speak, like a wall. Thus then getting your analytical mind to relax itself because there's nothing in the mirror to analyze except existence itself, presence itself. And so it becomes a window rather than a reflector.
You know, you once mentioned that that your existence is very similar to being in a lucid dream.
Yes.
For us.
Yes.
Okay. And that one of the keystone aspects of that is that you can see the symbols for what they are.
Yes.
As opposed to us, the symbols we see, and also because of our training, we think of them as solid. We think they mean one thing.
Yes.
Like a chair, or whereas if you were to see a chair,
yes,
what might that symbol represent?
A sensation of relaxed support.
So that's part of the evolution of consciousness also, is that we start to be able to see through the symbols that are presented to us.
And of course, they will change depending upon the circumstance and the situation. Again, similar to the idea of the permission slip you know as the tarot cards, because even though there may seem to be a so-called quote-unquote fixed image on the card, there are many different attributes to that image, many different kinds of objects that are represented in any one of those cards. And for someone who is sensitive to that particular permission slip and can allow themselves to read them, different symbols at different time, depending upon the interaction of different people, will stand out to the reader in different ways than they have before, letting them know which aspect of the overall image is the most important to look at and what meaning that may bring with it relevant for the person they are reading for. So even a chair can represent different things. It can represent the concept of relaxed support. It can represent the concept of paying attention by staying in one spot and being educated by something, just as you have your own chairs and desks in school. It can represent many different kinds of things, depending on how many legs it has, how many backs it has, if it has any back at all. So again, even the symbol of the chair can shift according to what's going on at any given moment in anyone's consciousness that is choosing to use that symbol to represent the state of being they happen to be in at that moment.
And there's been questions about how you can achieve the same kind of effect without having to take a psychedelic or
Yes.
a plant medicine. And it seems like it's also connected with the idea of being able to see through symbols when
Yes.
you are in these altered states.
Yes.
Is there other ways of attaining those states of consciousness?
Of course. Of course. There are many different permission slips. The idea of channeling is one of them. Being in the channeling state in the brain allows for these kinds of perceptions.
Okay, and then even some of the things like drumming and
Dancing, drumming,
meditation.
there are many different kinds, meditation, many different kinds of permission slips that generate certain states that will allow for these kinds of perceptions to seem more obvious and natural.
And whereas in a plant-based medicine experience, it may go on and on for hours,
Yes.
you can actually achieve the same thing simply by getting a download when you're in an altered state that
Yeah.
you generate naturally.
Yes, of course.
And then it unspools within you so
Yeah.
that you have recognition of the information you're receiving.
It unspools according to the time frame and the timing that is relevant for the person that has received the download, yes.
I see. Can all kinds of cats, including tigers and lions, can they see interdimensionals? I mean, and elementals and...
Yes, they don't always do it, but they all have the capacity, yes.
But is this something in domestic house cats that has been amplified?
Well, the idea of interacting with humans can amplify it. It can actually also dampen it. It just depends on who they're interacting with and why. Because the idea of humanity being connected to many different kinds of things, the cats can utilize a relationship with humans to magnify and amplify a reason for seeing particular elementals or particular spirits that might be relevant for the particular human that they're, as you say, hanging out with.
Which leads to the next question about zoo animals who are changed because they interact with humans and they deeply interact with human consciousness.
They can. They don't have to, but they can.
And they're in a situation where they're actually cared for very strongly. You know, there's a lot of concern about their well-being, enrichment, and all of these things. So how are we changing animal species and their abilities, I guess, psychically, by developing almost new species that have these kinds of experiences?
Well, again, like anything, it's a reflection of the evolution within your own consciousness. So you will form relationships or generate species that are more reflective of the level of consciousness that you're operating from.
So it's very interesting to watch them change, and the idea that animals can be friends with animals that heretofore would have been enemies.
Yes. It is to some degree not only a reflection of what we just said about the shifts in collective consciousness on your planet, but it is also to some degree the precursors of what we experience in our world about all animals being symbiotic instead of predatory.
So we're just seeing the early signs of that now.
Yes. Very early.
And our consciousness evolves.
Correct. And you become less predatory and more symbiotic as well.
Right. Do you have any suggestions for making extracts from crystals?
At this time, no.
Okay. Let's see. As far as individuals having challenges with finding time to follow their excitement, and especially if they have children.
It's about being creative and imaginative to make the time, not find it, by understanding how to follow, at least to some degree, the formula. Again, synchronicity being the organizing principle, they will begin to allow synchronicity to organize their lives and everyone in their lives in a manner that serves everyone best, synchronistically, thus creating the time needed in order to continue to and expand upon the actions of your passion. So you have to start somewhere. As long as you are willing to start somewhere and know that it can expand and be willing to allow it to expand without putting a condition on it that you are afraid it will expand too far and then you won't have time to do this or do that is important to you or needs to be done, is a complete contradiction of understanding how synchronicity works. So the idea is to at least act on your passion to the degree you can in the present situation and allow synchronicity as the organizing principle to bring you a more efficient way of doing with your imagination what it is that truly needs to be done, and allow you to also realize that there are different ways to do things that will afford you more time, and that there may be things you don't actually need to do when you're operating more efficiently. And therefore the time again will appear to allow you to continue to move forward. This is one of the side effects of acting on your passion, is that the synchronicity connected to it actually brings you more opportunities to act on your passion and brings with it all of the coordination necessary for everyone that's important to be in your life so that all fits in perfect timing. So it's not an issue of finding time, it's an issue of allowing perfect timing to work the way synchronicity will automatically manifest it for you.
And it also seems like when you're doing something that's your passion, like having a child and raising them,
Yes.
that even though there may be tasks involved in that process
Yes.
that you find quote unquote unpleasant or whatever, if you
Yes.
always frame it as being part of your passion of raising a child,
then you will find ways to do what is absolutely necessary in the most pleasurable way. And you will let go of those things or realize that there may be certain things that either can be done very differently or are wholly unnecessary to do. Again, remember, you have to look at this as a whole system. Being in your passion, by definition, brings with it the ways in which the things that need to be done can be done that are reflective of your passion. You don't have to assume that in your passion there will be tasks that will be unpleasant, because that's a totally contradictory idea of the state of being of passion. The state of passion wouldn't contain things that need to be done in an unpleasant way. That's not a definition of the state of passion. So being in your passion will bring you, if you're willing to allow it, the inspiration, imagination, and insight and synchronistic opportunities to allow you to do the things that truly need to be done that are reflective of your passion, including the raising of children, if that is your passion, having the family that is your passion, interacting with them in a way that is reflective of the passion of every single member in the family, working together automatically, synchronistically, because you're in that state of being together. And nothing is left out that's important. You have to understand how this works holistically and not try to piece it together like it's a collection of disconnected parts. It's not. It's one system.
We have a phrase here that if you love someone, then you should let him or her be free.
Yes.
Can you share some more about that idea and what that really means in terms of vibrational level?
Well, again, it's not imposing assumptions of structures on relationships that may not be what the relationship is about. So it's about letting go of all of these different assumptions that just because there may be a particular strong attraction, putting an imposition upon it or a supposition upon it about what that attraction is supposed to mean and how the relationship is supposed to play out just because of the strength of the attraction is a complete misunderstanding of the principle of the formula of not having any assumptions or insistence on the way your reality unfolds. So the idea of quote unquote, let them be free is the way to truly express the unconditional love that will allow the relationship to show you what it actually needs to be instead of what you've been taught to think it should be. And then you will have what you need to get out of that relationship by not assuming and misunderstanding what it is, letting it show you what it is, and getting what you need out of it, instead of being disappointed because what you thought you needed or wanted didn't happen, because that wasn't necessarily the purpose of that particular relationship.
So many people have challenges with that regarding romantic relationships.
Yes.
And so the idea that we go through a phase, let's say, of having a deep investment in romantic relationships and needing them to be the way we want them to be and our partner to be a certain way and all of that.
Yes.
What is the basis for the dysfunction aspect of that?
Well, fear of abandonment, fear of being unworthy, those kinds of things are the base frequencies of these kinds of behaviors. Again, the idea is that if that's what you're imposing upon the idea of a relationship, then you're actually not in the real relationship anyway, and you've created a self-fulfilling prophecy of, in a sense, being alone, even while you're in a relationship, because you don't know who you're actually in a relationship with, and they don't know who they're really in a relationship with, because you're not being your true self and not showing them who you really are so they can make the choice to be in the relationship that serves them or not. So the idea, again, is it comes from a fear of disconnection, being taught that you are disconnected, being taught that you are not self-empowered, being taught that you need others to complete you. So when you let all that go, the idea of relationships play out wonderfully, joyfully, lovingly, even romantically, in their own natural way, according to what is germane for that relationship. Remember, there are many kinds of romance, so to speak. And so the idea of the way you impose the concept of what romance should look like very often isn't exactly a true romance.
So how do hormones play into this? Because it seems like the more intensely human beings are experiencing their hormonal aspects, the more focused they are on these ideas and their insistences.
Yes, because hormones reinforce the belief that created them. Remember, every belief system, positive or negative, is going to create in your physical body a chemical reflection of the belief, and that includes hormones. So if it's a fear-based belief, it's going to include the idea of a chemical composition of your hormones and many other chemical substances in the body that will reinforce what you have bought into with regard to that belief. And again, that's why when you finally let them go, you often cry them out in your tears, because letting go of a fear-based belief also requires you letting go of the chemical component, which more often than not washes out through your tears.
So as a species, as we evolve, will our hormonal levels change to
Absolutely.
reflect that? And
Absolutely.
so, or do we have heightened levels of hormones now and perhaps historically when we've had lots of wars and a
Yes.
very patriarchal kind of environment?
How can you not? Again, remember, physical reality is a reflection on every possible level of the state of your consciousness, which is determined by your belief systems in physical reality. So everything is going to adjust itself according to those belief systems to give you a reflection in physical terms. Everything. Nothing is left out.
So using hormones as an excuse really is no excuse, because that will change as you shift your consciousness. Is it mind over biology in a sense?
All you're saying when you use hormones as an excuse is you're saying that you acknowledge that you have bought into a belief system that has generated these particular chemical structures in your body in order to reinforce itself. So you're admitting that there is a reinforcement factor that you find challenging, but nevertheless, if you understand the mechanics of what we've just described, it can't necessarily be used as an excuse to keep doing it, because the idea of recognizing that you have the chemical hormone that reflects the belief should put you in touch with the fact that you have the belief. And therefore, if you're in touch with the fact that you have the belief, you can change it because you know that the belief generated the hormone in exactly the same way that you know that a belief generates an emotion or a thought or a behavior. So just use the hormones in the way that you would use the emotion and trace it back and say, what would I have to believe is true in order to have these chemical components in my body to reinforce this fear-based belief? Just the way you would say, what would I have to believe is true in order to feel or think or behave or experience what I am feeling, thinking, behaving, experiencing. You can use the same technique with hormones as well, because it's all a reflection of beliefs.
Is that part of what the Greys did? They tried to eliminate the hormonal aspect of their expression?
Well, yes, they had to eliminate the idea of the reinforcement of any particular kind of emotional belief or anything like that, because of the work they knew they needed to do and how they needed to focus on it in order to accomplish it. So there would be absolutely no distractions whatsoever, because the idea of the hybridization agenda was very complex, and they knew it would take a long time, and they knew that if they didn't become, in a sense, an emotionless hive mind, they would never accomplish the task.
So they did the shortcut. Instead of changing their belief system, they literally
divested themselves of the belief system in order to become a hive mentality that would then be overseen by those that they had put in charge to oversee, which is the mantis beings.
Okay, and will we see changes as we evolve and ascend in our general theme of exploration, going from the transforming darkness into light? Yes. To some other kind of theme as a society?
Absolutely. Again, whatever you're the vibration of determines what you experience. And the simplest way to express that is what we have said before, is that even when you let go finally of all fear-based beliefs, you can still continue to evolve and refine yourself by now determining that you can let go of things that are simply not relevant for you, even if they're not fear-based beliefs.
Okay.
So that's one example of that idea.
And then lastly, there was a question about technology and sophistication of things like dating apps and other matchmaking services, and how will our experience of dating change in the future if we evolve? We will evolve more, so we balance out our hormones and we're not so driven by that.
Yes.
And perhaps,
well, it will be something more similar to what we experience on our planet, because we operate, as we have said, on pure synchronism. You'll meet exactly who you need to meet when you need to meet them. Period. That's dating.
And you won't put on them a insistence that they be someone other than who they truly are. It's much more free-flowing.
Because you will finally be honest with yourselves that you have no clue yet as to who they actually are and why they're in your life. You will allow that to unfold and show you who they are and why they're there, and you will take it moment by moment by living more in the present instead of assuming an entire future that has to unfold because you've met someone. So, does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
So then at this time, please allow yourselves to move forward.
Hello, Bashar. Good day to you. Aaron from Germany here. I've noticed that in the current stage of the Eye of the Needle experience, we are actually shifting to a whole new way of creating our experience of dream to reality. Permission slips literally stop working overnight. And I've noticed that particularly the process of wondering, the frequency of wonder, is coming online as a very simple yet absolutely powerful tool to create your preferred reality and preferred experiences. I was wondering if you could shed some light on the process of wondering and the frequency of wonder from your perspective. Thank you very much. Bye.
The frequency of wonder is the frequency of the soul, the frequency of curiosity and wonderment, amazement and beauty, is coming directly from your connection to your own soul, expressing more of the soul vibration through you physically. The idea of the change in permission slips is usually an indication of this, that you are accelerating, that you are not holding on to anything that doesn't serve you and letting it go very rapidly, that you will ultimately realize you are the permission slip, the primary one that makes the decisions about what changes to make within yourself. So this is a sign, usually, of an acceleration and a connection more strongly to the idea of bringing more of your soul's energy through your physical form.
Hello, Bashar.
Good day.
I'm really grateful for the chance to talk to you today.
It is our deepest appreciation to experience the co-creation of this interaction.
So, my mom committed suicide a few weeks ago.
All right.
And it's brought up a lot of questions for me about your teachings that I'd like to explore.
By all means.
So everyone tells me that there's nothing I could have done or been differently in order to help, and that it wasn't anything that I was doing that led to the creation of that manifestation.
Yes, well, you made an agreement. You made an agreement with each other that this might be likely to happen. But again, it's not that it had to, but certainly you are not to be blamed for anything because other people make choices.
It's that I see a lot of parallels between it and my process and my thinking and my experience. Like, I held the idea of her intention for the last few years, and she seemed to be held in suffering during that time. Yeah. And then literally like 2 days after I decided I was ready to open my heart and start to forgive her and look for a new relationship, she killed herself.
Well, now you have one. Now you have the relationship. By opening your heart, it let her know she could move on and develop a relationship with you from a higher plane. She will still make choices to allow her in some way, shape, or form to finish whatever it is she may not have completed in terms of the choices that she made, in terms of the reasons why she may have chosen that. In exploring her life review, she may realize at some point she may have to experience certain challenges that are similar again in order to go towards completeness because she made a commitment to do so. Nevertheless, the choice to transition into spirit at that time can be of great assistance to you by allowing you to develop a relationship with her higher self. By stretching to make a connection, you stretch towards spirit, and that can help you, in a loving way, learn more about your spiritual connections as well. So please do understand that the relationship still exists. And now she is free from whatever it is she may have been experiencing that made that seem like the only choice. She will use it to her advantage, but for right now, her focus is on making sure you use the experience to your advantage to become more of who you are, knowing that she now, from that position, loves you unconditionally and is free from all pain and suffering.
And I've had pretty good clarity on that. I've honestly experienced this as the deepest healing process of my life. It has been transforming me.
Yes.
And I think the only thing that keeps me looking backwards is this idea of responsibility. And was it, did I hold her in pain? And is it because of my process that her journey went this way?
No. She is capable of making her own decisions.
So in that vein, since we're constantly navigating different realities billions of times a second, I'm also wondering, why did I find myself in the one where this happened instead of one where she would seem to stick around longer, or her life experience could play out differently.
Because of what it's going to teach you that you felt was important for you to learn. You haven't really learned it completely yet. So you're asking about an agreement you made that hasn't played completely out yet.
So I understand how it could be the perfect reflection for me and like for my process.
Yes.
But then I wonder,
Yes.
so yes, you're talking about her and how she's doing fine in spirit and she made her choice.
Yes.
But since we're continuously creating our experience of others out of different, distinct, parallel reality versions of them,
yes,
who was I in relationship with? And which version of her will I be connected with in spirit?
A different version, a greater self. More of who she actually is as a reflection of the infinite.
I guess
whatever it is you need is what you will connect to in her.
Yeah. Sorry for kind of nervously talking over you.
No, that's all right.
So I guess I'm wondering about whether or not she's real in and of herself. Or
yes, of course she is. That doesn't mean you're not creating your version of it.
So if she has her own reality, how can it be that there are some where she doesn't do this and some where she does do this?
Because you're talking about a much higher level of the being that can experience many different things simultaneously. Right now, you're focused on what you understand as the spirit individual that represented your mother. That's the level that we're addressing right now. But on a much greater level, remembering that you are all that is, you can experience everything and anything simultaneously. It just depends on what level of the consciousness you're referring to when you talk about forming a relationship with it.
But she does have her own experience and her own choices, and she's not just a character on my screen or something.
No, you didn't make her up. The idea is everyone is a fundamental existing being, but you still create your version as an interface to relate to. That's like saying, you understand when you have a telephone conversation with a friend, you're not actually hearing their real voice? You're hearing a recreation electronically that sounds like them, but they have their own voice. It's just converted into electronic signals that are reconstituted into audio signals at your end. So it's like that. You're creating your version that you can relate to, even though she has her own reality, just as she creates her version of you, even though you have your own reality. Just like the telephone recreates the voice that isn't the original voice, but it's representative of something that is real.
Yeah, so my whole life I've been recreating her out of many possible variants to create the experience I've needed of her.
Yes, exactly. As she has done with you.
But then in spirit, where we are connected in a continuous relationship is on a higher level of like all my possibilities, all her possibilities.
Well, yes, those that are relevant for whatever level you happen to be exploring, yes.
So then would it be that like when I'm in spirit, it's kind of like my oversoul is, because sometimes you've said that when we lose someone, they don't really miss us because they're already with us in spirit. And is that like an oversoul and an oversoul together?
Well, no, it's more like the higher mind. The oversoul is something even higher. But the idea is, again, it is a more direct connection with the reality of the being. Remember that physical reality is a projection of consciousness. It's a dream. That's why you kind of have to create your version in the way that you do. Now, you're still creating your version even in spirit, but it's a closer connection to the reality of the person, the reality of the being. There's less in the way. There's less you have to recreate.
I think there's a lot I'll have to listen back to, and I might not fully understand all of this.
That's all right.
I think what's been important to me is to understand that she exists in her own right and that I didn't make this in some tragic way where it was my fault.
No, it's not your fault.
One of the thoughts that kept recurring was like that if I had had more space in my heart for her sooner, there would have been space in my world for her.
Yes, but you see, the idea of opening your heart is the point, and it didn't have to result in the idea of her choosing to stay. In fact, the idea of the opening of your heart continues in the relationship that you will be forming with her as she is now. That's the point.
Yeah, and that's what I'm reaching for, is the ability to relax into this and receive all the gifts that it offers without holding myself in blame and guilt.
Exactly. So her transition into spirit gives you a wonderful opportunity to accelerate the process of opening your heart and being more of yourself.
It's happening.
Yes. And therefore it was a very loving thing for her to do. And this was done by arrangement and agreement between the two of you.
Hello, Tadeo.
Nania.
So it's written that in the beginning was the One, and there was nothing other than the One. Is that true?
Yes, but there's no beginning. That's a concept that happens within the One. The One is not subject to beginnings and endings. It is just existence itself. It just is.
Okay. And why does God let the worst crimes happen on earth without using his or her power to stop it?
You must understand that that question is extremely outdated in terms of the perspective of what God is all about. Everything is made of God. Everything is made from God. Everything is God. There are no exceptions. God is not outside controlling things. The idea is that if God, all that is everything, it doesn't exert its will on anything. Everything that happens is part of God. So there's no idea of controlling it. Everything just is an experience of God, by God, in God, from God. Everything can be learned from. Everything can be used in a positive way if you are willing to use it that way. The questions and the way you're asking cause much confusion and misunderstanding on your planet by asking questions that are human-based questions from a human perspective. God does not function in the way you are asking the question.
Is there good and evil? And is evil the same as negative? Or how can you help us understand that?
From our perspective, again, it's not a value judgment. It is simply a recognition that there are positive, negative, and neutral situations, mechanically speaking. Negative is that which causes the experience of segregation, separation, diminishment, disconnection. That doesn't mean you actually are disconnected, but it can create an experience of disconnection. Positive is that which integrates, causes the experience of connection, allows you to realize you are always connected, and creates an expansive awareness of consciousness. The idea, therefore, is that the concept of evil is simply an individual who becomes fixated in their intention to promote the idea of the negative mechanism as an actual intention. But the idea is that negative mechanisms are in and of themselves not value judged as evil. It is simply the idea of how things are utilized, because even positive mechanisms can be used in a negative way, and negative mechanisms can be used in a positive way. So it is simply the idea of the recognition of intention as to whether to align with the flow of positive creation or the receding energy of negative creation.
And so why is it on this particular planet that such horrible things happen, and it seems like anything goes here. Anything can happen in the negative direction or the positive.
Again, from the soul's point of view, these are all opportunities to learn how to transform things in a way that teaches you more about who you are as an aspect and a projection of all that is. So giving you challenges to transform, giving you challenges to overcome, allowing you to learn to transform from negative to positive in your experiential reality, allows you to discover more about your own innate power as an expression and an extension of all that is. Without these challenges, you do not learn, you do not grow. I'm not saying you have to have them to the degree that you've had them, but the idea is they give you an opportunity to discover who you truly are in any number of given situations, whether they are positive or negative. It's just that the negative ones provide the challenge that allow you the opportunity to overcome things you don't prefer, to see if you can transform them, to see if you can exercise your power on earth, to see if you can remember that you are an aspect of all that is. It is given to you. It is in your hands to make that determination. The idea of all that is doesn't make that determination for you, other than the idea that it presents itself because of the neutral central point as approximately 51% positive and 49% negative. But it's up to you to determine which way you prefer to go, even when given a negative scenario that is operating negatively, mechanically speaking, energetically speaking. It is up to you to determine whether to feed the negative energy or feed the positive energy. That is your power, the freedom to choose, the freedom to be the unique aspect of all that is that you are. And without those challenges, you do not grow.
Is the fire and brimstone devil based on Kernanos represented in any other ET civilizations? And why would a group worship it as an archetype of God rather than as a typical benevolent version?
Kernanos is a nature spirit. And the idea is that on one level, it can function as an archetype, but it functions more as an archetype of nature itself. As an aspect of all that is, as an aspect of God, nature certainly is an archetype, and many aspects of nature can be represented as archetypes. But Kernanos is specifically about the idea of the, shall we say, shepherd of nature, the caretaker of nature, the caretaker of the nature spirits. And the idea that it has been perceived negatively is simply the idea of the result of more modernized interpretations that are fear-based, that have to do with your experience as a culture in the disconnection of yourself from nature, the lack of realization that you are nature, an expression of it. So fear-based beliefs have transformed the idea of the caretaker of nature into something negative for many people in their belief system doctrines.
Now, this question says, well, why did he allow his image to be altered to one of evil rather than having it remain one of nature?
Again, the question is asked from a misunderstood point of view. It is not up to Kernanos to decide how individuals may perceive him. Just as, why does anyone allow anyone else to perceive them negatively when that may not be the actual truth? So the idea is that you don't have the power to disallow. You can explain, you can share how it might not be that way, but another person still has the power to decide to treat you in a negative way. So it's not about the idea that Kernanos allows or doesn't allow that. All you have to do is look more closely in the deeper understanding of that particular being to understand that it doesn't have to be looked at negatively, that it can be understood from a positive point of view. But being a nature spirit, it does, like anything, contain the ability to reflect positive or negative attributes, depending upon how one decides to view it, what the perspective of the person viewing it has based on how they filter that perspective through their own positive or negative belief systems. So again, the idea is Kernanos has no more ability to allow or disallow anyone to perceive him in whatever way a person decides they're going to perceive him.
And in mythology, there are many stories of gods killing other gods. How does that relate to all that is? And is it true that once the supreme god was actually a goddess, but that she was destroyed by a male god?
These things are, again, more representative archetypally of the struggle within humanity to balance itself between the male and the female energies. Some of those stories, some of them, are representative of actual events between extraterrestrial beings that were connected to your Earth, especially considering the Anunnaki times. But most of that is simply the representation of the suppression of different energies that are not allowed to be balanced in your society, played out on an archetypal energy level in your consciousness.
And in the Holy Bible, there is an account of the deluge claiming God to be the cause. Aside from the idea that God is behind everything, can you tell us anything about what caused the deluge in a physical sense? Is it related to the asteroid belt? And if not, what is it that caused the asteroid belt?
Yes, the deluge that you're referring to is the result of an asteroidal impact in the Atlantic Ocean. Therefore, the breakup of the planet in the orbit now occupied by the asteroid belt that is usually referred to as Maldek or Marduk caused many different sized of debris of rocks and so on and so forth, many of which have struck your planet as well as other planets and caused extinctions to occur. So the idea of the deluge is simply a reference to the massive tsunami that occurred from the impact of an asteroid in the Atlantic Ocean that impacted the coasts of many places that border the Atlantic Ocean, including the idea of the submergence of Atlantis. The idea being that at that time, there was much strife and conflict that existed in the collective consciousness of the Atlantean civilization. Thus, the idea, again, sort of placed in stereotypical terminology, of the idea of God causing the destruction, whereas it's simply a recognition that natural forces have consequences for choices that are made. So the negative energy of the Atlantean civilization in their attempt to conquer other civilizations, when they fell to hubris and forgot their balanced state, allowed them to experience the attraction of shifting to a parallel reality where their civilization was destroyed. So the idea is not so much to blame the idea on God as a causation, but simply the recognition that whatever it is you choose, especially collectively, will bring about your ability to navigate to a parallel version of Earth that will demonstrate the consequences of the energy that you're holding on to.
So, given all the strife and conflict on the planet now, and like during World War II and World War I, how come nothing like that happened again?
It can, but you can avoid it. As we have said, the idea now exists that you are replaying many different scenarios from what you would call the past. You're replaying the Atlantean scenario, you're replaying the Orion scenario, attempting to transform negative to positive, darkness to light, so that you don't necessarily have to experience the same things that have been experienced in what you call your history. The idea, therefore, is you are being given opportunities to change your course, to make different choices, to experience consequences in a more positive light, but it's still in your hands and it's still up to you. Things like that could happen, although right now what you are experiencing is a potential lead up to it with the different kinds of what you call disasters and epidemics and so on and so forth, droughts and famines and floods that are being played out on your planet are kind of like a preview of coming attractions if you stay on the course of destruction. But you still have time to turn it around. You still have time to shift in the direction, to navigate in the direction of more positive versions, of parallel versions of Earth. The choice is yours. So make a choice